you have talked about the NYAFF used to be held in Anthology Film Archive, and then since 2010 it moved to Film Society of Lincoln Center. What is this collaboration with Film Society like? Because I feel like the core value of NYAFF is kind of at odds with Lincoln Center, because like Lincoln Center is kind of famous for its like very highbrow art house films, and it's also the home of New York Film Festival. So like, what do you think of this collaboration?
Sure. So I mean, there's still about being a film center or center of film, and film you have to be eclectic, and they are very eclectic. I mean, they don't only have highbrow things. They have, for example, an annual horror film festival. Not to say that all horrors, that there's not such a thing as highbrow horror, but a lot of people will think of it derogatorily. But so even though in a way, like you say, it seems at odds, it kind of makes sense. For even Criterion, which for years is considered very highbrow, as we expand and more things are uncovered, or more people know about every nook and cranny of cinema culture, more things get included. For example, I looked at the Criterion channel, and for Halloween, the month of Halloween, they had a lot of horror films, and they have horror films by Herschel Gordon Lewis, who is the godfather of gore, who's considered one of the worst directors ever made, but yet he's on Criterion channel. So I would say for film of Lincoln Center, I would hope it's a feather in their cap to have something as cool and eclectic as if I can be humble and say that, as NYAFF.
How has the landscape of Chinese language cinema changed in New York over the years? Like, do you see more diverse offerings and more diverse audiences? Or?
Over the years, Chinese language cinema, I mentioned back in the 90s there was Chinatown movie theaters. So you could go down, so people who are really cinemaniacs like myself could go down there and see Hong Kong films. And then we talked about Chinese art house cinema, or the fifth generation. You could see that in art house cinemas here. In the last 10 years, there's been an interesting change where mainstream films have become important, and are now there's Chinese companies that have some kind of grasp, some kind of stronghold in the States. So they, for example, AMC 25, you can go see Chinese, even Korean films sometimes. So there's a lot more there, and there's still the art house films that are coming to wherever they're coming, Lincoln Center or whatever. So it is a changing landscape, and I think now, again, with more and more content becoming available, there's a lot more opportunity to see a lot wider breadth of cinema.
The Chinese cinema industry has been constantly changing. For example, Hong Kong cinema has been drastically changed, with a lot of directors now making movies in mainland China. And also in the US, there are more day-and-date theatrical release, as we just talked about. Also, the theatrical window is now generally shorter everywhere due to the rise of streaming platforms. So all these new trends can affect overseas showing of Chinese films. And how does that affect NYAFF?
Well, the immediate way that it affects NYAFF is that if a film's going to play MC 25 before July, then, because we try to have some kind of, at least a New York premiere. And if we're not having a New York premiere, we want to have a guest. So maybe sometimes we'll make an exception for whatever reason at all. But let's say a film that we all really like, it ends up playing, like I said, it plays way before our festival. We probably end up ruling it out, or we might consider it, but it sort of narrows it down. And then conversely, there are some films that we go after that you would think would play AMC 25, and for some reason they never do until too late, and then we end up just giving up on them. Dying to Survive is an example. There's a film that for some reason it took forever for them to... did it ever play here? I don't even know.
This year, earlier this year.
Right, but it should have played here 2 years ago. So, I don't know.
And what about Hong Kong cinema? Like, is there any difference?
Now? Well, you mentioned that a lot of Hong Kong directors are working in China. Johnny To is one of the, big, great filmmakers, producer and director. And one of his last great films, Drug Lord, was a mainland Chinese film production-wise. It takes us mainland Chinese story. Hong Kong cinema the landscape of Hong Kong cinema may have more drastically changed even in the last, since the what do you call it, the handover, the hand back. But yeah, there's still some semblance of that old style of Hong Kong films, and we play some of them. We closed with Hong Kong's Oscar submission. What is it called? Of course, I forget. White something.
White Storm?
White Storm 2, thank you. That was the closing film this year.
Okay. So we talked about Hong Kong, and now let's get to Taiwan. So what do you think of the boycott of Taiwan Golden Horse Film Awards in mainland China?
I mean, that's always been a sticky situation. Does the Golden Horse Award affect our decisions? Like, oh, we won the Golden Horse Award? Slightly, maybe, but I would say nominally, not really.
Because NYAFF works with like cultural institutions from different regions. Like, do you think this may affect?
Well, it affects them more. For example, I think Hong Kong, the cultural religion, had a hard time this year because Hong Kong is having a hard time this year.
Yeah. And what role does NYAFF play in Chinese language cinema in the US?
I mean, I know we've developed a nice partnership with Shanghai International Film Festival. So, and I think that we've gotten a good reputation in China. I think that a lot of people didn't know who we are, and now we're getting more known and people more respected. And so I think in that sense, because a lot of times, some Chinese filmmakers might not know who we are, and they would be questionable, and they'd be like, are you a real festival? And then they find out we're not only a real festival, we're well established and respectable. And so then it becomes, maybe I would hope it becomes a badge of honor to be shown at NYAFF. A lot of people think that New York is like the center of the film festivals, because there's so many small festivals that don't last long, or so they're not so legitimate. This is a festival for everything, every region or every
Have you guys thought about maybe developing like a forum or developing a film market? We have
started to do talks. This year we had a really cool talk with Yan Yuping. And we did, last year we did a panel discussion at China Institute. Certainly we're not gearing up to do a market right now. How do you feel? This is your first time interviewing?
Yeah, interviewing like a film programmer.
Okay. And?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
I feel nervous.
Even now?
Now I'm good because I'm eating.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you feel like?